Good evening, welcome to C&T Collectibles. I'm C.
I'm T.
And tonight we're going to break down our top 5 catchers for the 2021 season. The statistics come from Fangraphs.com, but our analysis is our own, and the only thing that we promise is at the end of the season, the top 5 in real-life baseball probably will not resemble our top 5 on this list tonight. But we will
Sometimes you're not right.
Well, we would do our best. So what happened, we saw this in pitchers, the guys that usually wind up in top have some sort of like major outlying statistic that just you're not going to be able to predict it. So if everything kind of goes the way to plan, then this will be your top 5. But things never go to plan. So we'll get started and just do our best and have some fun. And we'll start off with our number 5, Willson Contreras. So leading off our list is the number 5 player at the catcher position, and that's Willson Contreras. In 2019, he was an offensive beast at the position, slashing .272, 24, and 64. With a near elite 128 weighted runs created, fueled behind a career high .261 isolated power and a 27% home run to fly ball rate. Repeating that excellent season at the plate would prove difficult. 2020 was almost the opposite of his huge 2019, and he saw the second lowest home run to fly ball percentage and isolated power of his career at just 15% and 164 respectively. However, the fly ball percentage and hard hit rate remained consistent with what he's done the past few years. With some slight positive regression, look for the home runs to creep back up into the high teens. His batting average to remain in the 250 area, and the overall offensive production to be above average with a weighted runs created above 100.
And our next player is Yasmani Grandal. At number 4, Yasmani Grandal, who largely benefits from making more appearances at the plate than Pablo Sandoval at a Golden Corral. In 2020, his strikeout rate climbed to nearly 30% and his isolated power dropped below 200 average for the first time since 2015. Everything else from fly ball percentage to hard hit rates stay fairly consistent. A
BABIP, batting average on balls in play. You can just say BABIP.
Around 300 was the highest since Yasmani's rookie season in San Diego. So don't look for a rise in batting average from the 230s, but perhaps he can cut down on the strikeouts and continue
his above average offensive production,
as indicated by a weighted runs created that remains in the 110 to 125 area. While with DH opportunities and well above average defense behind the dish, Grandal should continue to see plenty of volume.
Absolutely, he just piles up the stats because he gets all the at bats here. So before we get to the top 3, let's take a look at a couple players that can make their way into this when the season is all said and done. We'll start with Travis d'Arnaud, and he could make us look silly if he repeats his 2020 season. However, in 2020, he saw his strikeout rate climb into the upper 20s, so he'll need to get that back into the teens like he had up to the 2017 season for starters. Next, a 4.11 BABIP is rarely sustainable, so the 320 average he enjoyed last year likely sees regression back to his career 250-260 area. BABIP can remain unsustainably high or low during a season, but in most cases it does catch up the following year. Finally, he put just 30 balls into the air, which was the lowest rate of his career, while at the same time 25% of those balls left the yard, which was double the rate of his career average. Next is Sean Murphy, who's my favorite to break out. In 2 partial seasons with the A's, he's been above 130 weighted runs created, which puts him in elite company. As a defender, he's contributed positive WAR, and at the plate, Murphy has had good control of the zone, swinging at just 25% of balls outside the zone. League average is around 30% and makes league average contact on balls in the zone, but with very little soft contact. My bold call is that he could be an all-star as soon as this year. And lastly, Christian Vasquez was a top 5 catcher in 2020, building off of a nice effort in 2019 in which he was handed the Boston receiver job full-time. His weighted runs created stayed above 100 for the second year in a row, climbing from 102 to 115, as home run production has been in the low 20s after showing very little power in his first 4 seasons. If he can get 500 at-bats like he did in 2019, that number seems repeatable as his fly ball rate and his home run to fly ball ratio remained consistent, though the projections are skeptical he'll get that many chances at the plate. The biggest concern, in addition to reduced at-bats, is an elevated BABIP of 341 in 2020. A normalization of that to around 300 would imply his batting average dropping from 283 to the 250-260 area. For those reasons, fewer at-bats and some reduced luck on balls in play, Vasquez finds himself outside of our top 5. Want a real sleeper? Look at a player like Alejandro Kirk of the Jays to sneak into the top 10 if he can get the playing time.
At number 3 is Dodgers receiver Will Smith. He's only played partial seasons, one of which wasn't his fault to this point, but in that time he's shown to be an elite offensive option, racking up 132 and 163 weighted runs created in those shortened seasons. Smith does well managing strikeouts, punching out the under 20% of the time, while walking around 10% of the time, which is consistent with an excellent approach. There's not much more to say. He's an elite bat at the position. Really, the only thing that would prevent him from putting up the best numbers in the game at the position is playing time. Will the Dodgers continue to use him in just over of half of their games? Will Austin Barnes and the top prospect Keeper Ruiz eat into his time? If Will Smith gets 500 plate appearances, look out.
All right, and number 2 is Salvador Perez, who's been a monster at the position for many seasons. His defense has slipped in recent years, but he's getting more breaks from behind the dish, and his volume remains high, finding extra swings at first base and also DH. His .333 average in 2020 was a bit too much if the .375 BABIP is not to be believed, but still, Salvador Perez, that hits in 260s with 25 home runs, is a very valuable catcher. In 2020, he might have been the best offensive catcher in the game, alongside Will Smith in terms of weighted runs created, notching an elite 162 mark. Perez's home run to fly ball rate spiked to 25% in 2020, fueling a 300 isolated power. So look for that pace to slow, but he was on track for a roughly 400 home run season. So please don't be greedy in your expectations.
And our number 1 catcher should be no surprise. JT Realmuto is the best catcher in the game and will remain on top of every ranking until he proves otherwise. He's been an above-average bat since 2016, reaching into the 120s in terms of weighted runs created a couple times, including last season. Combine that with his excellent defense, and you're clear.
You got it.
You're clear. That doesn't make no sense.
And you have your clear number 1. I mean, it's obvious because it's JT Realmuto. Who doesn't have him at number 1?
Number 1, heading into the 2021 season.
There you go.
He put a few more balls on the ground in 2020, sacrificing line drives, but he made up for it by lifting more balls into the air and putting them into the stands at a career-high 23% clip. Should that regress, it likely brings him from a 30 to 35 home run pace back into his mid-20 ranges. In addition to more grounders, like the price of more fly balls was a strikeout rate north of 24%, the highest since the 11 games in his rookie year. Even with that regression, he was still the best catcher in the game.
Tom, nice job, buddy. So, apologize for having to script it, but if we don't stay on target, then we get a little bit wordy, so we figured this was the best way to do it.
I think JT Realmuto is.
What do you think of the list overall? Anybody you want in there?
Mitch Garver.
You want Mitch Garver in there, so, but he...
Or Ryan Jeffers.
Well, that's the problem. They're both going to get enough time that with catch.
Mitch Garver got the Silver Slugger.
That was 2 years. That was 2 years. That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
But that's always the challenge with these guys is you need playing time. Realmuto gets a lot of at bats. Salvador Perez gets a lot of at bats. But because catchers don't play every day, it becomes a challenge. So you got to find the guys that play the most. And Mitch Garver probably not, because we've already got the DH taken care of, so he can't. He can't sneak in that bats at DH, first base. Sano's over there, so.
True, but we also got Ryan Jeffers back up.
That's what I'm saying. They both need time, so neither one of them are going to be a viable option, I think. They're going to be great together. If you combine them into one catcher, they'll be awesome.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. See, look what happens when we get off message. Everything goes haywire. So, all right. Hey, appreciate you watching. This is what we got for today, and have a great rest of the day.
Bye.